you know, what I'm running into more and more is like people's concern with, how do you deeply fortify your immune system, right? Like that's really sort of the topic of our time. And this understanding of nerves and breath and this knitting together of intelligences. What I want to point out is Agni. So Agni is the concept of fire, of digestion. It's relative to the word ignite. It has the same etymology. Ignite, I believe, came later after the Sanskrit version of Agni. And so there's a spark. Now, Agni in Ayurveda it's a very well-developed concept, and it's in every cell of the body. And there's even multiple Agnis in cells, where the cell membrane has an Agni and the nucleus has an Agni. So they have a spark, they have a power of digestion. Now, Agni, or fire, is directly linked to intelligence. So we were talking last week about all these different levels of intelligences. Now, these intelligences are obviously interchangeable and networked within our physiology. When we look at what empowers the nervous system, is it's aerating the body. You're using consciousness, which is a light. Consciousness, when you direct it, is a fire. And in Ayurveda, we use the word tejas, Tejas, to identify this fire of focus. So when you focus on something, you create a laser. And that laser carries intentionality. It carries direction. It means that you're not doing all the other things. You're not focused on anything else, which is all the other things. You're just focused on the thing. So when you empower your nervous system by focusing and using the tool, the breath here is a tool, the mind is a tool, and you're using the breath to focus the mind into the body, you're igniting those Agnis, those cellular Agnis. And so the body becomes more intelligent. You're also incinerating that which shouldn't be there. And that which shouldn't be there is a 3-letter word in Ayurveda, and it's ama. And ama is that which generates confusion. Ama is that which is undigested. So there's stuff in the cells, there's stuff on the cell membranes, there's stuff between the cells that generates confusion because it's not digested, it's not functional tissue, and it's not functional waste. Waste is a different word. Waste is mala, and wastes are functional. There's a function to your urine, there's a function to your poop, to your sweat, to your menses. Ama, there's no function to, but it's in the body. And the signs of ama are the same as the signs of inflammation, of long-term chronic inflammation. But ama is an earlier detector than inflammation. And that to me is very important, that it starts with understanding the relationship between how much space you need to digest, space in your digestive tract, space in your stomach, and also space in your emotional body, space in your mind. Because you digest your thoughts, you digest your emotions, you digest all of your interactions. So you need space in relationship. And this space element, akasha, is like an endangered species right now. I have a hard time finding it in my moment-to-moment awareness. And I'm like, if I have a hard time, like I've been in yoga and Ayurveda for a few decades. and I live in the country, and I eat a lot of local food, and I forage, and I walk. And I have a hard time because there's so much change that's happened so quickly for humans on the planet. There's so much cultural change that's happened in 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years. And yet our physiologies are ancient. They're a lot more ancient than what's now hip in modern culture. As far as how many images we see, how many conversations we have, how much we take in, what we take in. So a big factor in ama is lack of space. A big factor in ama is not enough heat, not enough direction of fire. Now, if you build a fire, you need wood, you need something to ignite, you need a spark, but you also need space. You need air, otherwise the fire smolders. And that's what happens when there's not enough space in relationships, in the mind, in the thoughts, and in the physical tissue of the body, in physically digesting, is it smolders. And when it smolders, you have a byproduct of smoke. We have had a lot of smoke in the West, right? Smoke makes it so you can't breathe. So smoke in the body means that the cells can't get oxygen. And that's what the ama starts to do, is it forms this sticky gunk and it coats the cell membranes. So the cell membranes can't absorb and they can't release. So it's a two-way street, what a cell membrane does, right? It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. So the cell starts to, if over time there's too much ama, which leads to chronic inflammation. So any symptoms you can think of with chronic inflammation, whether there's congestion, whether there's irritation, whether there's bloating, fatigue, mind fog, whether there's buildup or accumulation of wastes in the body like kidney stones or gallstones, or arterial sclerosis where the arteries are just getting clogged, where there's tumors, where there's excessive growths, and deficient quality of tissue. So the body tissue isn't like compact and potent. Instead, there's confusion, and the confusion starting to alter the cells. So the cells start to become changed, qualitatively changed. So then the body stops recognizing the body and attacks itself. That's basically autoimmune, or the body generates cells that aren't part of the body, and that's cancer. Or the body can't regulate heart and can't regulate emotions, and that's heart disease. So they're the three biggest diseases, right? Heart disease, cancer, autoimmune. It's actually in the other order. Heart disease, about 2x is autoimmune, which about, I think 5x is cancer, or 7x is cancer. All right, so even being foggy, even being bloated, even having water retention, even having bags under your eyes when you wake up in the morning, having congested lymphatics, not being able to think clearly, not being able to focus, being anxious, being depressed, being irritable as your go-to emotion, those are signs of ama. So there's something not happening with akasha or space, and there's something not happening with Agni, which requires space. Without space, without akasha, you can't feel rhythm. And to me, this is super important right now. I notice in my household, like when things are out of balance, things are going too fast. There's not enough space to feel into right rhythm, which creates aligned action, which creates better experiences. Okay, so in Ayurveda, when I first started learning Ayurveda, it seemed like there was just like a ton of freaking rules around eating, like a lot of rules. Like you, in your stomach, you should have like one there's for the whole stomach, if you divide it into thirds, there's room for a third solid, a third liquid, and a third space. And then the digestive enzymes, the bile, can do its work and absorb the nutrients, absorb energy, absorb fluidity, and release the waste. So there's this rule. There's a rule. There's other rules around not eating after the sun sets. Usually eating before the sun sets. There are rules around not eating between meals. Not eating when emotional, which means stressed in modern lingo. Not eating when you're under emotional or mental stress or duress. Not eating when emotionally agitated or frustrated or irritable with another person. It's a lot of rules, right? I mean, when you really think about it, like, think of how many of these have you violated in the last 7 days, right? Like, just think about it. Like, and to violate, I don't mean that in like, I think it's a very strong word, but it's, you know, with rules, there's violations. So just thinking of it in that way. Eating when not hungry. Anyone done that lately? Put food in your mouth, right? It happens, right? So if we let the rules go, but we connect with the concepts of why can we not eat when emotional? Because we should be digesting the emotion. If we don't, we'll develop emotional ama. We'll eat the food. The body's Agni, the Jatara Agni, or the fire that's part of the digestive fire that makes you get hungry, won't be optimized to digest food. Now you've got a smoldering fire. You've got smoke. You're coating your cell membranes, first starting with the blood, starting with the lymph and the blood, the plasma and the blood, because that's what happens with food as it goes from the digestive tract into the bloodstream. So now ama is circulating. It's not just in the digestive tract anymore. Smoke overflows, it smolders, goes right into the bloodstream. Now you have puffiness, bloating. Now you have puffy eyes in the morning. Breast congestion for women who are menstruating. Skin breakouts, that kind of stuff. In Living Ayurveda, it's super practical, it's super down to earth, and we wanted to make a difference in your life, honestly, the moment you start. Hi, it's Kate Stillman, and I'm going to tell you about how the Living Ayurveda course works and why it works the way it does work. A part of my natural personality is that I'm a futurist. I'm an innovator. I can't help it. It's just the way that my awareness works and has always worked. So I'm always looking at how do we make Ayurveda practical to solve for our biggest problems, at home in nourishing ourselves and getting deep rest and passing on the habits to those who our lives affect. If we understand our habits are truly not our own, we say, hey, whose habits affect me and whose habits am I affecting? And can we align those habits with the kind of radiant longevity that we want to experience, right? Year by year, decade by decade by decade by decade in our road ahead. The other core part of my philosophy is around collective leadership, and I take those two words very seriously. I see how there's a whole next level of open-minded integration where we look at the questions that you're bringing, the conversations you're wanting to have, and we build that into our leadership model, help lead and guide our community in the direction of addressing the deepest, most potent issues that'll help us get the greatest traction in growth and transformational evolution. So that's a lot of, my philosophy on Living Ayurveda. I look at our planet, I look at the stresses to our ecosystems, the stresses to our human population, our human culture, and that's what we're solving for. So that's how the whole course is geared. I take my community very seriously, become part of my heart, you want to become part of my people, and that's how the course works. I mean, that's why it works too, is it's even though we're all coming in from all over the world, we have an experience of deep connection, deep community, and evolution together. All right, I hope that clarifies some of your questions around the Living Ayurveda course. So there's a lot of rules, but if we get to the concept of like how much space is needed when I just really tune in, like how much space is needed for me to digest my emotions each day? How much space is needed for me to digest my thoughts? And I find even for me, and I'm like, damn, I have a lot of advantages here. Like I've been trained by amazing teachers in meditation and enlightenment and pranayama and Ayurveda, for decades. And I'm like, and still, how much time do you need for thinking to digest thoughts and generate aligned thoughts? There's a book that came out years ago by Forni, an Italian guy, called The Thinking Life. And I read it and I was like, yeah. As a culture, we don't really spend time just thinking. So thoughts also need to be digested in order for the cellular Agnis to be strong. And so if there's too much on your mind and you eat food, you don't digest the food well. If you're not just taking time just to think when you think and to eat when you eat. So eating often happens in a place that's then becomes like a priority. It's undistracted because there's space. There's space in the mind. There's space in the emotions. There's space in the stomach. It's empty. It's ready to receive. There's true hunger. I find true hunger is also an endangered species right now for humans. Like true hunger, the kind that doesn't go away when you drink water, or take a walk, like that, or do pranayama. All right, so with Agni, if Agni is strong because we're hungry and we're not doing two things at once, we're not trying to digest food at the same time, but we're trying to just digest thoughts and emotions, then what happens is called Sama Agni, is perfect digestion, balanced digestion. Now, this is the core of treating disease in Ayurveda, is to get a person into Sama Agni. I'd say back to Sama Agni, except for so few people experience it because so many children were raised on whatever, factory farmed food, processed food, snacking, etc. So for many people, it's, I know even for the generation that's between like Gen X and boomers, so many people were put on formula because like nursing went out of vogue there, right? Around World War II, right? Nursing went out of vogue. And so many infants were not raised on nursing, which establishes the strength of the digestive tract from mouth to anus. It's called mouthing and analing. And if you go deep enough into yoga, you recover that ability to move your digestive tract like a snake. There's a number of deeper yogic practices that really deeply realign the digestive tract. So if nursing, what happens is you're sucking and sucking and sucking. And anyone who's ever nursed a baby or watched a baby be nursed, and like half the time, nothing's really happening. They're just moving their mouth. Well, what's happening is they're strengthening their digestive tract, mouth to anus. They're getting pulsation and developing the whole thing. So many people, my point is this, many people, I don't know the percentages at all. All I know is that autoimmune is rising. AMA, the percentage of people with AMA is rising. The percentage of people with AMA-related diseases. Not every disease is AMA-related. There's near AMA diseases as well. They're just not prevalent right now. They're just not the vast majority. Is that for many people, they've never had perfect digestion. They've never had a phase of their life that was like, yeah, great digestion. If you were raised in a traumatic environment, right, you couldn't digest emotions and food at the same time. So chances are you didn't have strong Agni, strong balanced Agni. So for many people, it's a finding for the first time what strong digestion is. Now, all of the habits that we do in Body Thrive work on the most basic principles of prana and tejas and ojas. Prana is the life force. It's the subtle dosha of vata. Tejas, we already covered, is the subtle form of fire or pitta, and it's discriminatory, it's focus, which means you discriminate on all the other things you're not going to put your attention on to choose the one. And Ojas is the essence of the immune intelligence. It's that which enables the self as the body to know the self, to be separate from the environment and strong in the self. So I just want to talk about one more thing. I know I'm going on and on. The Agnis, I talked about them being cellular. There's a hierarchy to tissue creation in Ayurveda. And there's a hierarchy to these Agnis. So the liver Agnis and the digestive, it's basically digestive fire Agni first, the hunger, then the liver Agnis because they're processing the blood. And then it goes into tissue, into plasma, red blood cells, muscle, muscle, fat, bone marrow, reproductive fluid, and then ojas. Now with the immune system, both the innate and the adaptive immune system rely on the Agni in bone marrow. And that was pretty far down the list, wasn't it? Right? Like, gotta have good plasma, gotta have strong blood, strong muscle, compact muscle tissue, fat just the right amount, which is like a couple Anjali, no more. Then bone, like bones are going to create the intelligence of the bone marrow. Now we're down to bone marrow. So we're over one handful of tissue layers in, and that level of intelligence, that body intelligence, that BQ has to be really high functioning to have a strong functioning immune system. Any ama anywhere in the works decreases that potentiality of strong white blood cells. So one of the ways that Ayurveda has really helped me is to understand the philosophy, right? It's an anatomy, it's a different philosophy, it's a different perspective. And what I find is like there's a level of at times there can be like a level of resistance to some of the complexity of it, right? Of like, that's a lot to think about, what we just covered in a half an hour. But the more we can actually feel it, like just feel it, like just feel in your body, like, do you have the right amount of fat on your bones? Is it too much? Is it too little? There's no judgment. There's no shame and guilt. It's just get a good read. How you doing? Is there enough space in your life? Is there enough space in your stomach when you eat? Do you feel alive when you wake up in the morning, like sparky in your body? These are just all signs that like you're heading in the right direction with Agni. Trusting your intuitive intelligence to feel more, to feel your emotions more, to have thinking time, to investigate true hunger. This is where all those rules come from. The rules are for people who wouldn't feel and wouldn't think enough. That's what the rules were for. Or they were guidelines to direct people into how to feel and think and breathe more. So you can go either from the rules or not from the rules. I'd rather you went from experiencing the concepts. I find it's faster and more effective. So what I want to do is a 2-minute, I'm going to set the timer, a 2-minute breathing practice. In doing quite a bit of reflecting, thinking, studying on the immune system and the adaptive immune system, both from allopathic and Ayurvedic perspectives, what keeps coming to center is the control of your nervous system, which in yoga and Ayurveda is controlled by the breath, You could say controlled by the mind, controlling the breath, or vice versa, but the access into control of the nervous system, like the fastest path in the tradition that I come from in yoga and Ayurveda, is the breath. And what I'm finding more and more is that it's so essential to know how to aerate your physiology, so that, and we'll talk a bit more today about Agni and digestive fire and the different levels of tissue of the body and these intelligences that we talked about last week. So one of the key ways to start to link together all those different intelligences we talked about with the body intelligence, the BQ, the emotional or energetic intelligence, the EQ, the IQ. I was looking for intuitive intelligence, because in Ayurveda and yoga, that's like a big part of the intelligence body that relies on self-reflective awareness. So I'm naming that RQ until someone else can show me something that I should be calling it instead. So your self-reflective, I was going for the R, unreflective intelligence, RQ, and your SQ, your spiritual intelligence. So that which threads those intelligences together, the yogis found, was breath, with breath work. So I thought we could do a little 2-minute, and this might be a little micro 2-minute rule habit that some of you adopt and test out this week. Okay, I'm pressing go. So begin with a longer, deeper exhale. And we'll do a Wim Hof style breathing, where you inhale strongly through your nostrils and exhale strongly through your nostrils, and getting in a cycle of inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, which might feel deliberate and strong and fast, but keep with the rhythm. And exhale, inhale, exhale, and keep going. Inhale, new life force. Exhale, still energy. If you feel your body releasing more or sighing, that's a sign of releasing more stale energy, making more room for new life force. Use your nostrils, use your lungs, use your diaphragm. And after your next exhale, we'll do a 20-second breath hold. Allow yourself to relax. And then allow a natural inhale to come back in. All right, so that was 2 minutes. Does anyone feel better than you did 2 minutes ago?